Hello, I'm Lynn Wraight, and I'm, I guess, one of the founding employees of St. Clair College Thames Campus. It was back in 1971 when I received a phone call that the college was going to be starting up, and I had previously worked at the Board of Education, so I found this pretty interesting and a great opportunity to explore. Sid Keene, who was the director and former engineer from Sarnia, he offered me the position, which was a secretarial position, and it was in the basements of the Ursuline College Pines, a convent in Chatham, which was opening its doors to male students for the first time. So it was quite an experience. Bill Hockey, who was the only administrator, full-time faculty member, and I shared 3 rooms in the basement, with 2 of them classrooms, the third being our office area, that also contained hockey field equipment. We had a Gestetner, we had the desk for the student government president, and we did everything in there. So it was pretty cramped quarters. We had Bill and 20 part-time instructors. And I did the timetable on a magnetic board on the wall, and there were no computers, so we ran grades off on a Gestetner and hand-typed them in. It was a hectic time. We had 64 students in technology, business, and applied arts. It was a very fun time getting in on the ground floor, and beyond our expectations, Sid Keene had predicted that we would have 60 students, and 64 came through the door. And he said, and next year, we're going to double that. And Bill and I looked at each other and thought, yeah, really? And sure enough, we ended up, he said, we're going to move to a warehouse on Kyle Drive. And sure enough, we did, and went through to more than double our student population there, and started to have an influx of people from Windsor. Ted Collins came down as the student services director. Toli Sapaleff was there as the business person. Jim Hamilton was heading up technology. Jay Ertel joined the team, and we had, I think, about 180 students at that time. Still didn't have a lot of amenities. Wayne Wright was the counselor, and his office was across the road up above a bar called The Stable. So we were spread out with portables and an open concept idea of education. We had, as Q, as our president, being a hands-on president, he of course couldn't be at Chatham all the time, but he had a red phone installed in a prominent location for anyone at any time to pick it up and get a direct call to him with complaints or whatever.
I'm Jay Ertel. I joined the St. Clair College Thames Campus in 1972. I was hired by Sid Keene, the newly appointed director of Thames Campus. Now, Lynn was over at the Pines at the high school. I was in the admin office on Wellington Street, above the near the St. Joseph's Auditorium. I knew Sid the previous year. While I was working at Union Gas as an engineer, I taught 3 terms for the college in the technology area. I taught fluid mechanics and I taught metallurgy. Lynn mentioned Sid was an engineer. I believe he was a mining engineer, and he worked for Imperial Oil. While he was there, he had joined the college on the Board of Governors, and when he left the board, he was in the position of the vice chair. Sid had one mandate that he reminded us all through the time we were there: we're going to build a campus, and that's what he worked for. I met Sid when I was working as an engineer at Union Gas. He was always active in the professional engineering organization. So how did I get started at the college? Well, Bill McConnell was a high school teacher in the math area, and he was the strongest advocate that we had in the schools for St. Clair College. He said to his high school students, "You are going to St. Clair College." So how did I get to know Bill McConnell? I was sitting in the office with my partner engineer, and he said to me, "Bill McConnell's on the phone. They're looking for a teacher in the technology area at St. Clair College. Are you interested?" That's how I got started with St. Clair College. Bill, I knew who Bill was because I had a colleague at Union Gas who was a classmate of Bill's. They were both in civil engineering at Waterloo and were part of the class of 1966. So I got together with Bill, and he said, "You get down there and chat with John Charlesworth. He's going to get you tuned in on courses and go over the operation with you." So I met with John, and we went over course outlines, and I found John to be extremely helpful. All the detail I needed I got from John, and I found him to be a good friend over many years at the college and right into our retirement. The teaching that I did in the technology courses was to industry students. And I recall I had people that were at the draftsman level, I had people at the technician level, and I had people at the technologist level. Working at Union Gas, I had a pretty good crew of technical people taking the course from Union Gas. I had people from International Harvester, and I remember people from the city of Chatham. I remember teaching Ron Skidmore, who was a Harvester student at that time. It was International Harvester before Navistar. And he was the first Thames technology graduate. And he ended up getting his certification with OSET. So back to continuing education. I was hired as the area coordinator for Kent County. We offered courses in adult training, Con Ed, management development, and training in business and industry. Now, Lauren Clark, who was the dean at that time in continuing education, got me started in just a wonderful way. This was the 72-73 calendar. I started at the college in May, and when I started going out to industry in the summer, early fall, my picture was in there, same picture that was in announcing my appointment in the paper. Perfect, and I had all the details on the courses that were offered by the college. And I remember when I started, one of the first industries I went to was Navistar. I can't tell you exactly what the numbers were at Navistar at that time, but I do remember that they were over 2,000. I went in there, I had the calendar, I met with the human resource person, Jerry Nagel, and very quickly after that I was brought in to speak to the technical people, the office people about the programs that we could offer, and what St. Clair College was all about. I mentioned the name Jerry Nagel, so there I was, 1972 into Navistar, and Jerry Nagel's a business admin grad from St. Clair College, very strong proponent of the college. And I kept in touch with this guy throughout my whole career, right into my retirement. He went on, he was always active on the key committees at the campus. We had the Thames Campus Advisory Committee, and you look at the names, they're on the plaque when you come into the Thames Campus. Jerry Nagel's on there. Later, when I took on the business programs, there was a period of time that Jerry chaired the Business Advisory Committee. When Navistar closed, he went on to the city of Chatham, and I couldn't have been happier when we had the 50th anniversary dinner. Jerry came to the gala, asked at the door, was I there? And I was. He said, "I want to join you for this." So it just shows how those initial introductions can go on for a long time. Thames Campus offered the first post-secondary programs at the Ertel Business College, and they had 3 programs, one of each of applied arts, business, and technology. So I mentioned I started in the admin building, In the summer of 1972, we moved to Kyle Drive into a renovated manufacturing facility. It was called the Damon Building. It was an aluminum extrusion company. Later, we added temporary buildings, the portables, followed by classrooms at the Wheels Motor Inn. So there I was, just after joining the college. In addition to my Con Ed responsibilities, which was very common in the college, I was asked to take on project engineering for the facilities. So I spent time, and Sid Keene made it very clear, yes, we're just moving into the summer, but these classrooms have to be ready for September 1. So I got the drawings, I worked with the architects, and I worked with the contractor, and I also worked on the permanent facility planning up to the preliminary design stage. The building that opened in '77 was a $3.25 million building, and it opened on a new grounds area for the college of 110 acres. Well, lo and behold, the offices were all set when we got to the Damon Building. Classrooms needed to be built and be completed. So I worked with the new academic team, the architect and the contractor to do that. Lynn mentioned Bill Hockey. Bill had transferred in '71 to Thames Campus. He was the communication arts guy, the administrator, and after that he was involved in bringing on the MRC program, which became known as DSW, and Craft and Design in '74. Mike Keel was hired at that time. The DSW program was a very large program where training had been taking place at the Southwestern Regional Center. So Bill was happy to spin that off to Mike Keel, and Mike Keel was hired to do that. Lynn mentioned Toli Sapaleff. Toli Sapaleff came down in the spring of '72. That's when I met him. And he was gearing up to offer the business administration and general business in September. But he also started the secretarial science program. Jim Hamilton was hired in the technology area to run the general technology. That was in '72. Jim was a controls engineer from the petrochemical industry, and he was there for, I think, a couple of years, and then went on to John Abbott College in Quebec. But I remember when we had the general technology starting, we were just in the process of recruiting teachers. So the guys from technology were invaluable in getting us started in those labs. Dean Campagna was down there. I remember him helping, and he's very interested to get us going in the chemistry area. And Justin McNamara came down. He was helping us in the physics, and I think he did the electrical area as well. But what those guys were doing was giving us the template on what to order and what to buy, and quickly get these labs up and going so they were ready to go. So I remember the last walkthrough by Sid Keene at the end of the summer. It was the end of August. We ran around. Everything was ready. The only thing missing was some paper, toilet paper in the washrooms. So we knew Don Wraight was coming down, and all of that was ready for day one. Yeah. Now, from that first year, the '72-'73 class, and I mentioned Toli Sapaleff started the secretarial science. We had several Thames Campus staff, that long-term staff, that went through that class. Linda Greenidge, who worked in the library for many years, she was a graduate. Irene Holinsky worked in the support staff area. She was a graduate. And Doris Summerfield was a graduate. And I took a look at the business admin people who were coming through the program. And there was a guy, Larry McKeon. He was in the accounting area, and I met him later. He had completed his CGA, and he was involved in the Business Advisory Committee. So my involvement with the initial planning of the campus was, as I said, up to the preliminary design stage. I worked with Mike Summers and Charlie Meek from a firm in Toronto called Meek, Clausen, Servage, and Walker. Then I had the privilege of being grilled by Bill Gerates, who reviewed and revised and signed off on the changes for the work to move forward and to be completed by Vic Sasso and Graham Spence. And sometime we'll have a little chat off the air on the number of things that Bill was very quickly to delete that I think you would find quite humorous.
Well, and while Jay was busy with the academic side of things, I gravitated more to the student service side of things and totally enjoyed the camaraderie and the support from Bill Totten and Becky Queen, and getting the whole registration, admissions up. The admissions to the nursing students was a big challenge. But one of my very favorite memories was going out on student recruitment in a large Winnebago that we would park in the parking lots of the local high schools because they weren't dedicating a spot for college people to come in to talk to their students, so we went to them. Brian Dabian was on the Winnebago as a counselor, and we would go out and there would be a steady stream of students coming out to find what St. Clair was all about, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time.
Okay, in the early years, we did what needed to be done to get these colleges and new campuses off the ground and up and running. There was a lot of excitement locally in the community for a St. Clair College campus in Chatham, and there was overwhelming support from local MPP Darcy McHugh. He was called the Duke of Kent by the opposition, and he served from '63 to '78. When I was at the college, he was serving as the finance minister in Ontario. So there was a big push to get us going. So just a few moments on the Con Ed side. Beginning in '72, the Con Ed course offerings rapidly expanded by adding many of the School of Continuing Education courses, plus we took over the Kent County Board of Education night school. This meant not only offering courses now in Chatham, but throughout Kent County, including Blenheim, Dresden, Ridgetown, Tilbury, and Wallaceburg. Guidance and orientation to my new Con Ed responsibilities came from Windsor. In the Con Ed area, John Charlesworth, I mentioned, invaluable, and the steady guidance from Lauren Clark I've appreciated the whole time that I've been at the college. In the adult training area, Jim Grettis couldn't have been any more helpful, and Joel Menzel was very supportive as well. This was a time of rapid growth in Con Ed. We needed to get students, we had to get staff, we had to get course offerings, and facilities, which included the college facilities, the secondary schools throughout Kent County, and the Thames Theatre. A Con Ed team was hired. Gary Muntz took care of the Applied Arts Community Services. Roland Webster took care of the Business and Management Development, and Ken Smith took care of the technical and adult training area. These were exciting times for people who chose to get involved with St. Clair College. And for me, the most rewarding aspect for having worked at St. Clair College is having had the opportunity to meet and getting to know so many good people who wanted to make a difference. Students, staff, and community people in Chatham, Kent, and Windsor, Essex. I retired in 2000 with many fond memories.
It wasn't unusual for people to approach the college and offer to do some teaching. Many prominent people, like Norm Haynes, who was the head of the radio station, came in and taught some communications. We had Dick Tolhurst, who was the president of International Harvester, taught accounting. And these people were not doing it for the remuneration. They were fully supporting our local college, and are still very supportive today. And in my time there, fortunately or unfortunately, I knew it was time to retire when I started to see the children of our original students coming to the college. And I thought, no, I better be getting out of here before grandchildren start showing up. But it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for myself to actually further my education too while I was there and finishing a college diploma, and I can't think of a better way to have gone into retirement from that experience.
I spoke earlier mainly on what took place up to 1978 to get the college started. But there's been a lot of development since that time, bringing us up to 2018. And I'm just going to go from memory here. In 1978, Sid Keene retired, left the college, and a new principal was hired, Fred Crothers. Fred Crothers had been a chair in the technology area. The electrical electronics area was his bag, and he was just an excellent leader to take a team that worked back to 1972 with a whole lot of enthusiasm for a new campus to focus on the programming at the college and get us through the next period of time. Fred was a going concern, to say the least. I think I can put this in here. I got a tip from one of his coordinators before he came down to Chatham, and I'm going to mention Vic Burgess. He's gone. He was extremely helpful to me. He said to me, "Do not get caught by Fred Crothers at 4:30 in the afternoon because he can talk the leg off a donkey." So anybody that hears that will be able to fully appreciate it. Now I've got to go on. But Brian Dabian followed Fred, right?
Fred, yes.
Okay, Brian Dabian transferred down from the Windsor area. Brian was a very strong counselor at the college. We always liked Brian, and he worked very well with us as a team. He spent a number of years with us at Chatham, always very, very supportive and helping us move forward. And then he got an opportunity in Peterborough as the president of St. Lawrence College. He was very well liked in the community.
Not St. Lawrence. Sir Sanford
Oh, sorry.
Fleming. Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
I just got corrected.
Yes.
I know it's Sir Sanford
Yes.
Fleming in Peterborough, and they have campuses in Lindsay. Brian was followed by Paul Bockwell. Paul came in to the college from the secondary school. There's some irony in this and what I'm going to tell you. Mark Benoit is my successor at the campus as the chair of the academic chair. And they've done a lot of development work with a new power line program, and they've established a national training center. Paul Bockwell would have loved that because he was a power lineman. And I still remember seeing the old picture in his office of the wires on a pole all entangled and something that he had to fix. Now, following Paul?
Trish
McFarland.
Trish McFarland.
We were at the 50th anniversary dinner, and there were a number of questions answered in terms of getting people warmed up for the dinner. And one of the questions was, who was the longest standing principal at Thames Campus? And the answer was Trish McFarland. Ah,
see, I would have thought it was Crothers.
Well, it felt like Crothers.
It did.
But it was Trish. And then following Trish, Tom McCarthy transferred down here, and he was here for a number of years and ended up going into the foundation area, which he really found interesting, did a terrific job, and he stayed active in the community ever since.
And then they abolished the principal's position, or?
Lynn, no, I didn't mention Lynn McGetchie Schultz.
Yes.
Lynn McGetchie Schultz was hired as the principal for Thames Campus, and she worked very, very closely with Dr. Strasser. Dr. Strasser's target was to support and develop St. Clair College, and he had the principal's job established as more of a project job to take care of these submissions to the federal government, provincial government for additional facilities, which led to the Healthplex, the Mary Uniacke Healthcare, Health Sciences Education Center, and a number of other areas. Today, there's not a principal under the direction of President Patty France. The academic responsibilities tie in to the VP Academic in Windsor, and the goal is still to try and get about 1,500 students in Chatham. And the current movement is moving in that direction. This year, with 1,200 international students starting, mostly from India, and classes in those areas have started both in Windsor and Chatham. So that's helping us get towards our targeted number of 1,500. I was just trying to reflect on that the other day. When we submitted the educational brief to the ministry for a campus in Chatham, I remember collecting all that information from the department heads, looking at the schools, etc. And our forecast number for the size of a campus in Chatham was 1,100 and something. So 1,500 is still a good stretch, but sounds like it's doable under the new guidance.
I guess my own personal thoughts is that have established some long-term, very good working friendship relationships. I still see students who say, well, remember this or remember that. It was not uncommon to be invited to students' weddings when we were there, and it was very much a congenial group working together, and I totally appreciate my years that I had at St. Clair.
And I mentioned earlier how grateful I have been to have met people internally at the college, externally in the community, who really wanted to build a campus and be successful as a college. Now the question, I had the question many times when, since I left Union Gas, did you regret going to St. Clair College? And I'd smile and I'd say, not at all. Just part of that story. When I was at Union Gas, the chief engineer, Dave Patterson, had just received additions to his department, and he had 160 people under him. When I told him that I was joining St. Clair College, and he made reference to somebody in IT who have done the same thing, he said, you can always come back. And I never needed to go back and collect on that ticket.
No, well, that's good. That's good.